The last transmission is never dramatic. It is a clipped sentence, half-finished, dissolved in static as the carrier wave collapses into noise. One moment the network breathes, data packets flowing invisibly through towers and fiber lines. Then the signal fragments, weakens, and disappears. No explosion, no warning siren, just silence where coordination used to exist. In that silence, isolation becomes the first threat. When communication fails, situational awareness contracts to the distance of your eyesight, and survival shifts from connected intelligence to autonomous decision-making. The danger is not only that help cannot reach you, it is that you cannot accurately perceive the scale of what is unfolding beyond your immediate horizon. Analysis begins with infrastructure dependency. Modern communication networks are layered systems. Cellular towers powered by the electrical grid with battery backups designed for hours, not days. Internet routing centers dependent on cooling systems and uninterrupted power. Satellites that still require ground stations to distribute signals locally. When the grid falters, backup systems initiate, but they are finite. Diesel generators require fuel resupply. Batteries discharge. As load increases, because people make more calls during crisis, the drain accelerates. The misunderstanding is that digital networks are resilient by design and therefore self-sustaining. The hidden science is that redundancy increases complexity, and complexity increases maintenance burden. Evidence from large-scale blackout analyses shows communication degradation beginning within the first 8 hours as backup power reserves deplete and overload conditions spike tower demand. Survival implication. If you wait for official instructions through conventional networks after a cascading failure begins, you may receive nothing. Escalation occurs when misinformation fills the vacuum left by silence. In the absence of verified data, rumors propagate through fragmented channels. The psychology of uncertainty amplifies perceived threats, driving premature movement, hoarding behavior, and unnecessary exposure. The transition is critical. Survival is not only about physical resources, but about information discipline. Tactical preparation begins before collapse, not after. It requires understanding the physics of signal propagation and the engineering limitations of emergency communication. The first overlooked principle is line of sight. Radio frequency communication, particularly in the VHF and UHF ranges commonly used by handheld radios, depends heavily on direct or near-direct line of sight between transmitter and receiver. Urban environments obstruct and reflect signals through buildings, creating multipath interference. Many assume that buying a handheld radio guarantees long-distance contact. The misunderstanding is equating device ownership with communication capability. The hidden science reveals that effective range is determined not by advertised wattage alone, but by antenna height, terrain profile, and atmospheric conditions. Evidence from amateur radio field tests consistently shows that elevating an antenna by even a few meters can double or triple reliable range in dense environments. Survival implication. A compact, elevated antenna improvised on a rooftop or upper floor can outperform a high-power radio used at street level. Escalation intensifies when power becomes scarce. Batteries become currency. Most people stockpile flashlights and radios but overlook energy conversion efficiency. The danger lies in assuming that any generator or battery bank solves the problem. Analysis of small-scale energy systems reveals that conversion losses occur at every stage. Chemical energy to electrical, DC to AC inversion, voltage regulation, heat dissipation. The misunderstanding is believing rated capacity equals usable capacity. The hidden science of Puchert's law demonstrates that battery discharge rates affect total available energy. Drawing high current reduces effective capacity. Evidence from controlled discharge experiments shows significant runtime reduction when devices operate at peak load. Survival implication. Low-draw devices and staggered usage patterns extend operational lifespan more effectively than simply increasing storage capacity. Transition now to water, because communication and power are secondary if hydration fails. The danger is microbial contamination once municipal pressure drops. When water systems lose pressure, backflow can introduce pathogens from soil and compromised plumbing. Many assume clear water is safe. The hidden science of microbiology contradicts this. Bacteria such as E. coli and protozoa like Giardia are invisible to the naked eye yet capable of causing debilitating illness within days. Evidence from boil water advisories after infrastructure failures shows contamination events often occur without visible turbidity. Survival implication. Filtration and purification are not optional redundancies, but mandatory layers. Mechanical filters remove particulates and many microbes, but viruses may require chemical disinfection or ultraviolet treatment. Redundancy in purification methods increases resilience against unknown contaminants. Escalation emerges when sanitation systems fail. Toilets dependent on pressurized water and sewer flow become inoperable. Waste accumulation introduces vectors for disease transmission. The misunderstanding is that waste is merely unpleasant rather than dangerous. The hidden science lies in pathogen life cycle and vector ecology. Flies, rodents, and surface water can transport bacteria from waste to food preparation areas. Historical epidemiology consistently links sanitation breakdown to outbreaks of cholera and dysentery. Survival implication. Controlled waste containment using sealed containers, desiccants, and physical separation from living areas is not excessive. It is preventive medicine. Transition to food logistics. Urban households typically maintain limited food reserves, often calibrated to weekly shopping cycles. The danger appears when supply chains stall due to transportation disruption or labor shortages. Shelves empty quickly because inventory systems are optimized for turnover, not stockpiling. Analysis of supply chain design reveals just-in-time delivery minimizes storage costs, but eliminates buffer capacity. The misunderstanding is assuming warehouses contain vast reserves accessible during crisis. In reality, distribution centers are nodes feeding continuous retail demand. When inbound trucking halts, outbound flow depletes rapidly. Evidence from natural disaster case studies shows grocery inventories can drop below 50% within 48 hours of panic buying. Survival implication. Caloric planning must consider energy density, storage stability, and preparation requirements. Foods requiring minimal water and fuel for preparation preserve both hydration and energy reserves. Escalation intensifies when cooking fuel becomes limited. Natural gas lines may shut off due to safety protocols. Electric stoves are useless without grid power. Many rely on outdoor grills without understanding combustion physics. The misunderstanding is viewing flame as harmless if used carefully. The hidden science involves carbon monoxide production from incomplete combustion, especially in enclosed or poorly ventilated areas. Carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin with greater affinity than oxygen, leading to hypoxia without warning odor. Evidence from emergency room data consistently shows spikes in carbon monoxide poisoning during power outages. Survival implication. Combustion devices must never operate indoors without engineered ventilation. Portable stoves designed for outdoor use should remain outside, regardless of weather discomfort. Transition toward mobility. When fuel pumps fail due to power loss, vehicles become static assets. The danger is over-reliance on gasoline storage without understanding degradation. Analysis of fuel chemistry reveals that gasoline oxidizes and forms gums over time, especially when exposed to air and temperature fluctuations. The misunderstanding is that stored fuel remains stable indefinitely. The hidden science indicates that fuel stabilizers slow degradation, but do not eliminate it. Evidence from small engine maintenance studies shows carburetor clogging after months of untreated storage. Survival implication. Fuel rotation schedules and sealed storage containers reduce risk of unusable reserves during critical moments. Escalation reaches communication again, but now at the human level. Group survival requires coordination. The danger is assuming verbal agreements are sufficient under stress. Cognitive load during crisis impairs memory and judgment. The hidden science of stress physiology demonstrates elevated cortisol levels reduce working memory capacity. Evidence from emergency response training shows rehearsed protocols outperform improvised decision-making under duress. Survival implication. Predefined roles, rendezvous points, and fallback plans minimize confusion when communication devices fail. Transition to medical readiness. In infrastructure collapse, hospitals operate under generator power but may triage aggressively as resources thin. The danger is minor injuries escalating due to lack of sterile treatment. Analysis of wound management reveals that infection risk increases dramatically in unsanitary environments. The misunderstanding is equating a basic first aid kit with medical preparedness. The hidden science underscores the importance of irrigation volume. Flushing a wound with sufficient clean water reduces bacterial load more effectively than antiseptic alone. Evidence from battlefield medicine confirms that early, aggressive cleaning reduces infection rates significantly. Survival implication. Stockpiling sterile saline or maintaining purification capability for wound irrigation can be life-preserving. Escalation continues with temperature regulation. In cold climates, heating systems rely on grid power or fuel deliveries. Hypothermia risk rises indoors when insulation is inadequate. The misunderstanding is assuming walls provide sufficient protection. The hidden science of heat transfer shows that conduction, convection, and radiation continuously remove body heat in unheated spaces. Evidence from building energy audits demonstrates rapid temperature decline in poorly insulated structures during winter outages. Survival implication. Creating a smaller insulated microenvironment within a larger space, using blankets, reflective barriers, and confined volume, reduces heat loss and conserves metabolic energy. Transition to psychological endurance. Isolation, uncertainty, and disrupted routine erode morale. The danger is cognitive fatigue leading to poor risk assessment. Analysis of decision fatigue indicates that prolonged stress degrades impulse control and increases susceptibility to errors. The misunderstanding is viewing morale as secondary to physical supplies. The hidden science of behavioral resilience shows structured routine stabilizes stress hormones and preserves cognitive clarity. Evidence from long-duration expeditions demonstrates that scheduled tasks and clear objectives reduce anxiety. Survival implication. Maintaining daily structure is as tactical as rationing water. Escalation emerges when security concerns surface. In scarcity, theft risk increases. The danger is overreaction leading to unnecessary confrontation. Analysis of defensive strategy highlights deterrence over aggression. The misunderstanding is equating visible weaponry with safety. The hidden science of situational awareness emphasizes layered security. Lighting, controlled access points, and community cooperation reduce threat probability more effectively than isolated force. Evidence from crime prevention studies shows that environmental design, clear sightlines, limited entry points, lowers opportunistic crime rates. Survival implication. Strengthen physical barriers and communication within trusted networks rather than relying solely on confrontation. Transition again to the concept of the last transmission. When external communication ceases, internal networks must compensate. Community radio nets, prearranged signal plans, and information boards can disseminate verified updates. The danger is fragmentation. Analysis of decentralized communication models reveals that small, interconnected nodes sustain information flow even when central hubs fail. The misunderstanding is believing only large systems can coordinate effectively. The hidden science of mesh networking demonstrates resilience increases when each node can relay data independently. Evidence from disaster response experiments confirms that amateur radio operators often restore localized communication faster than institutional systems. Survival implication: distributed communication knowledge within a community multiplies resilience. Escalation builds as days pass and resources diminish. Dehydration impairs cognition before thirst becomes extreme. Caloric deficits reduce physical output. Sleep deprivation compounds error rates. The transition now is stark. Tactical preparation is not a collection of gadgets but a comprehension of system fragility. Each overlooked principle: antenna height, battery discharge curves, microbial contamination pathways, combustion byproducts, heat transfer coefficients, becomes decisive when infrastructure no longer buffers consequences. The final layer of analysis returns to signal, because the last transmission may not be electronic, it may be environmental: sirens ceasing, traffic noise absent, the hum of HVAC systems gone. These sensory cues are data. The misunderstanding is ignoring them as background. The hidden science is that environmental baselines define anomaly detection. Evidence from situational awareness training emphasizes recognizing deviation from normal patterns as early warning. Survival implication: cultivate attention before crisis so that when silence replaces noise, you recognize it not as calm, but as a signal that systems have shifted. And so the investigation continues. Tactical preparation is less about secret techniques and more about disciplined understanding of physics, biology, engineering, and human behavior. What they do not tell you is that survival is rarely dramatic. It is incremental, technical, and rooted in principles accessible to anyone willing to study them. The last transmission is not the end of information. It is the moment responsibility transfers from centralized systems to individual competence. The question is whether you have trained yourself to interpret the silence.